Now playing in a world where we're not sure if we want to go back to the theaters. Well, on this show, I usually say that if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. But that's technically not true because I'm actually not here right now. I'm on vacation, but we're not leaving the digital space empty for you while I'm away. We're doing something I like to just call Critics Corner, where we're reaching out to various contemporaries in the field, and we're looking at stuff that may have slipped through the cracks, stuff that's not quite as obvious that you really should see, be it on a streaming platform or one of the cable channels, or even theatrically. Yes, theaters are coming back eventually. Actually, by this time they may be already be here, so you never know. But you just heard a little laugh on the other end of the mic, and it is the distinct dulcet tones of our good friend of the show and friend in real life, Mr. Richard Crouse. How you doing today, buddy?
Good, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Happy to do it. There's lots, one of the things that's happened over the last 15 months or so is people come up to me all the time going, "Whoa, there's no movies coming out. What are you filling your time with?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? There's probably more movies now coming out, or certainly more that we have to have a look at than ever before. And frankly, there's a lot of really good ones out. So this gives us a chance to talk about some of them."
Remember the days when we could watch everything? They're long gone.
There was a time when I really thought it was like critical to the job of a film critic that you saw
Yeah.
everything that was out, because I thought you had to have an overview of what was playing in the theater, what was in the zeitgeist, what people were thinking, what was doing well, what was not doing well. I realize now that, frankly, first of all, it's not possible anymore really to see absolutely everything that's coming out. And I also don't think that you have to contextualize everything from the moment of release. How does it relate to the world right now? Well, I don't know. Is it a good movie or not? That's what I'm more concerned about these days.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously, you are the second coming of James Brown. You are the hardest working man in show business. But could you tell the beautiful people listening out there where they can find your stuff? Because you are literally everywhere these days.
Yeah, well, just look at richardcrouse.ca. That'll sort of give you the roadmap as to where I'm going to be, or ctvnews.ca. You'll find reviews and videos and things over there. You will find me on CP24, on the news channel, on the Bell Talk media radio stations all across the country, and there's more too, but who cares? There's a lot. Just go to richardcrouse.ca, and that's the hub. That's where you'll find out everything.
Or if there is a Law and Order marathon playing somewhere near you, he
Tell
will
me about
probably
it.
be there.
Yeah.
But on this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a music documentary which just hit the Disney Plus /Star service here in Canada. It would be on Hulu in the States for anybody listening down there. But it is Summer of Soul, or The Revolution Could Not Be Televised.
Yeah, this is really great stuff. And I had a feeling, even before I saw it, that this was going to be right up my alley. Pure performance, beautiful performances, unseen for 50 years. It took place in 1969, the original festival. And every Sunday for 6 weeks in a row, there were these amazing festivals at Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem. And, 50,000 people would show up, and bands like the Fifth Dimension and Mahalia Jackson would share a stage, or it would be Sly and the Family Stone and Moms Mabley, the great comedian. It goes on and on. I mean, a literal who's who of African-American talent performed at this. And the tapes everything was shot, and then most of it went unseen for a very long time. Some of it was shown on television at the moment in 1969, but these tapes sat in someone's basement, the producer's basement, for almost 50 years when they were rediscovered. And then Questlove from Jimmy Fallon's band, the drummer of the Roots, came along, and I think has just done an exemplary job of taking 47 hours worth of performances, cutting them down into a movie that's 2 hours. And then with the rhythm and syncopation of someone who is a drummer and a DJ, mixes so beautifully interviews from today, where you have people like Marilyn McCoo, who was in the Fifth Dimension, crying as she watches the image of the Fifth Dimension playing on screen from 50 years ago, to people who are actually in the audience 50 years ago as children who are now grown-ups and having a look at this for the first time again, and seeing those reactions and is heartwarming and beautiful. But the way that he contextualizes the time and place and why these shows were important, I think is absolutely brilliant. And he does so by having the music, I think, be the driving force of this, and the social commentary certainly not secondary, but it feels like one living, breathing thing. It's quite remarkable the job that he's done at mixing the music with these interviews and have it all just come out to be seamless and really thoroughly entertaining.
I mean, it really is quite representative of just Harlem in general as well. It really does play like a visual mixtape. And I mean, I was just so struck by how, like I said, how really representative it was, because it wasn't just bands like Sly and the Family Stone or Gladys Knight, but there was Herbie Mann, there was Mongo Santa Maria, there was really sort of very prominent representations of sort of Afro music and Afro Cuban music and Puerto Rican music as well in the festival, which really, I mean, I guess at first glance you kind of gloss over, but it's so key to what makes up Harlem as a community.
Well, I love that because I guess it's set in 1969. You still were able to have bands and gospel bands who had been around forever, who had been groundbreaking in their time, still together and performing on the same stage as Sly and the Family Stone. You talk about the Latin influences that were very predominant in the film. Those, I think, come just from a time when not only was the world changing, but music was changing so much. And this film, that's what I think one of the things that gives it such resonance is that it really does take all those elements and in 1 2 hour chunk give you a really interesting snapshot from a pop culture sense, from a socio political sense, from every angle. Gives you a really accurate portrait of what those 6 Sundays in 1969 were like and what they led to. The careers that were spawned from that. And how Stevie Wonder was emerging from being little Stevie
Little
Wonder
Stevie
to
Wonder,
being
yeah.
to being this incredible performer that he became in the 1970s. And so it's really this remarkable footage that everyone thinks of 1969 in concerts, they're going to think of Woodstock, I guess, automatically. But Summer of Soul now for me is the number one concert doc from 1969.
I mean, when you have that footage of Mahalia Jackson and Mavis Staples, who
Man,
are obviously two icons in and of themselves, just sharing
yeah.
the stage together, it's not only are you as the audience member transfixed, but the audience at the time was transfixed, and being
Yeah,
able to sort of recapture that energy was so huge.
yeah, well, I think that the movie is so well shot. Clearly, tons of cameras. There is you see cameras on the stage, and they're in the audience, are all over the place. So lots of shots and things to choose from for sure. But I loved watching the audience almost as much as I
Oh,
enjoyed
totally,
watching
totally.
the acts, because there is just such, particularly I think during the gospel numbers, there is such joy and such just a feeling in that audience of not abandoned, but people just listening to music that really speaks to them, and enjoying it and letting it take them somewhere else. And that is what great live music can do. But in
Yeah.
this case in particular, I think it's the gospel music that really hits it home. That and Nina Simone.
Oh,
I
for
was
sure.
absolutely knocked out by her performance. Some of the bands that were on this bill I had seen over the years live over the years. Nina Simone is not someone that I ever get a chance to see, but if you are like me and were a Nina Simone fan and would like to have a look at her working, I think at the peak of her powers, check out Summer of Soul, because her performances in that movie are unbelievable.
No, it really is this fascinating sort of cultural testament to the time and what was going on, and also sort of a weird reminder of how many of these things that happen, and with the footage that ends up in people's basements. I mean, people think this is a rarity. No, it actually happens all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure that, there's all sorts of this footage. I mean, I can't help but think that probably in a summer when you have Woodstock, which is shot and, edited, comes out, it's a big hit. They release the albums, do the entire thing. I can't help but think that this should have been released back then. Now, maybe 47 hours of film was unwieldy and nobody really, nobody had the expertise to put it together. And maybe we're the lucky ones that we had to wait 50 years and we get someone like Questlove to come along and put this together in an absolutely incredible way. But I can't help but think that there is a certain amount of racism involved when
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
you take these beautiful performances, and apparently, the attempts were made to sell them, and people weren't interested. And when you watch it now, it seems almost impossible to believe that you could watch these performances and not think, "Ooh, this is," if for no other reason, get it out just so people can see it.
Well,
It's a little bit beyond me.
well, so much of that is framed too. Just it's like there's moments in the film because the festival took place over the initial moon launch, and
Hmm.
at least from a community standpoint, it was like, well, that's nice. You can go land on the moon. I'm more concerned about this right now, and
Yeah, I'm more concerned
understandably
about
so.
this, or feeding my family,
Yeah,
or yeah, and that I thought was really fascinating. And I mean, I love Mom's Mabley has a joke that she was at one point she was on the space shuttle, but then she got bored, so she got off in Baltimore or something like that, which I thought was
that's right.
so funny. And then Red Fox, the from Sanford and Son
Yeah,
later, everyone knows him from that, but he was a very famous comedian before that. Talks about it as well as some just man on the street interviews that they do that really gives you the idea that the moon launch, which was celebrated and covered 24/7 on the news at the time, did not resonate with all communities.
yeah. And I mean, this even took place sort of pre Wattstack, which happened
Hmm.
on the West Coast, obviously in the wake of the Watts riots. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of fascinating just to see how things like this can really disappear off the face of the planet. It makes you wonder if there's footage of SARS stock sitting in somebody's basement
Yeah,
somewhere.
that's right. Oh, that may well be. I also think though, when you watch these videos and you watch this movie, that you really get a sense of the power of music to
Oh, for sure.
heal and to
Yeah.
inspire and to give joy. And during the last 15 months or so, I don't know when this is going to air, but like let's just say since March of 2020, as we've
Yeah.
all been, many of us locked down, and I've been really finding myself looking towards finding movies that provide some kind of uplift, because they're not that hard to find. They are out there, but I do find that movies like Summer of Soul, that really just comes at you like a big happy pill,
Yeah.
and you will feel better at the end of it than you did at the beginning of it, and you'll learn something along the way. Just turn it up loud though, and for maximum enjoyment. I've been looking for those. And I think that's not. I mean, it's a superior concert film, but I think that sense of uplift that comes with it is one of the things that's made me just adore this movie as much as I do.
And just to transition off of that, because there is another documentary which is in theaters as of this airing. I don't know when it's going to be on VOD, but I'd imagine
Mhm.
pretty soon. And it's about a guy who was looking for that uplift, but really uplifted so many other people around him just by being who he was. And it's basically the story of Anthony Bourdain. I
Yeah,
think it's called
Roadrunner.
Roadrunner, right?
Yeah, Roadrunner. And I was a little trepidatious about approaching this initially, because I was a huge Anthony Bourdain
Yeah.
fan, and frankly, I've found it difficult to watch the shows, the reruns, and videos and things of him, because I still just find it so extraordinarily sad. But I did my job. I sat down and watched this, and they have found a way of telling his story using footage that was shot during the making of, mostly of during his television shows. There's
Mhm.
some earlier footage before he was a television star, when he was just starting off as a writer and being interviewed and that kind of thing. It doesn't spend a great deal of time on his young life. It kind of starts when he begins to become notorious as the writer
Yeah.
of Kitchen Confidential, and moves forward from there. But a lot of this footage, I thought, well, I will have seen most of this. I will have, I will already know this story. But when you see this footage recontextualized in this movie, it feels different, and it feels more revealing to me
Yeah.
as we get near the end of what turns out to be a sad story. I think the first line, I saw it a few weeks ago, and I'm a little foggy on my chronology here, but I think the first line of the movie is, "This will not have a happy
Yeah.
ending," and it's
Yeah.
in Bourdain's voice. And we all know how the story ends. And as the movie moves towards that, and we're starting to see footage from the last handful of shows that he made, and you see this like physical transformation that he made when he became very thin and very wiry and very muscular, and all the stories of his relationship with Aja Argento. I started to look at that and I'm thinking, why did we not look at this footage beforehand and say, well, clearly here's a guy who's exhausted. Clearly here's a guy who's going through something. Clearly there's something here that he needs some help here. And I took that away. Maybe it's hindsight throwing that, supposition on this footage, but it just became clear to me as I was watching it. Although the first time around, when I watched it, when it was on television, parts of it, taken from his show Parts Unknown, it didn't really occur to me that I was looking at someone who was going through this existential crisis due to fame, due to exhaustion, due to an endless wandering spirit, that he just wanted to be out in the world and learning and always looking for happiness. And it always just seemed just a little bit out of his grasp. And I found the last half hour of this movie very powerful and really, really something that I didn't really expect. The kind of wallop of seeing footage again that I was familiar with, but recontextualized, felt different to me, and felt like a lesson that we should have learned a little bit earlier than we did.
No, and it's really fascinating because, I mean, especially while I was watching it, I mean, I was so struck just because I had forgotten that he was an addict and had addiction issues, but just the more we see sort of this very sort of, like you say, recontextualized footage, made it feel so much more personal.
Yeah.
Like he was still an addict, but he was addicted to work. He was addicted to sort of living and being out there, but he lived life until it killed him almost, which is almost a sad thing, well, it's not almost, it is a sad thing to say, but it's kind of amazing to see that unfold.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, so often with addicts and addiction, you do replace one with another. I've interviewed addicts who have said, "Oh yeah, I don't do heroin anymore, but I go to the gym 72 times a week, or I do, I do something else." There's, there's a replacement for it, that addictive personality, which, a lot of us are sort of touched with a little bit, but when you get to the more extreme side of it, I think that, you find. And certainly I thought with the case with Bourdain, like just this endless work schedule that he put himself on. And I think he felt responsible for a really large crew and cast of people that grew up working on this show, grew around him working on this show, who were who he felt responsible for. There was a lot of people working there. And if you said, you know what, I'm going to take a year off and just sit and look out the window and figure my life out, they're all out of work for a year. And I think he felt the weight of that and lots of other things too.
But conversely, they all loved him so much that they would have done it.
Yeah, probably. Absolutely.
And that's the fascinating thing.
Yeah. I mean, you really get a real sense of I'll say the genius of Anthony Bourdain, his anti-television presenter personality, which I loved, the guy who really just did kind of tell it like it was. And you could tell that, the odd time when he would do something like the game show that he hosted with Nigella Lawson,
right.
Whatever that was called, The Taste, I think. And, you could tell while you were watching it that he had sort of a disdain for the process. But, it's something that you do to make money and to continue your trajectory so that you can do other, I guess, more interesting things. But I like that he was always just who he was, regardless of the situation that he was in. And that's great broadcasting. His way of looking at the world and looking at the show that he did, all of them, but Parts Unknown, I think in particular, is kind of like a machine for empathy. You teach people what the rest of the world is like. And so even though I've never been to the Congo or I've never been to Beirut, places that he profiled on the show, you learn that people just want the same stuff all around the world. They want a warm place for their kids a warm and safe place for their families to be, food on the table. And he understood that by traveling, the more specific his location was, and the more specific the place that he was journeying to, almost the more universal the story became. And that's genius. And I think that that's what made that show so effective, is that it really was a little machine for empathy. You watch those stories and you realize that people around the world, we're all just connected, and we just, don't always remember that. And he was great at getting that message across.
Well, he became such an iconic personality by trying not to be a personality.
I
That
know.
was really his sort of modus operandi, and that's why people love the book and people love the film.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you said, when he was trying to be quote unquote TV, it wouldn't necessarily work. But when he was just being him,
Yeah.
cranky or happy or what have you,
Yeah.
like it worked fine. And I mean, the big pull away line for me was something he said to one of his friends was, it's like, don't you get tired from, everyone knowing your name and all the fame?
Yeah.
He said, if my job is being nice and polite to people on the street, it's better than, being a
Yeah.
mid-level line cook in a failing restaurant,
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what he did so well on the television show was manage to be, other than the empathy and all that stuff, is that he just managed to be himself, and that's really hard to do. I think most broadcasters, certainly when I first started out, I looked to the people that I grew up watching or listening to, or the people that I really admired, and I tried to be like them. And I realized after I got fired from my first radio job that I wasn't going to be like Casey Kasem, or I wasn't going to be like Wolfman Jack, or I wasn't going to be as slick as Knowlton Nash, or Lloyd Robertson, or any of those voices that I looked to. And it wasn't until I was just myself that things started going well. And he grasped that early on and never let go of it, and that's pretty impressive considering the level he was working at.
No, and that's a life lesson that, I mean, at least for me, I think that's the uplifting side of the movie that so many people tend to sort of overlook. It's like we can all try to be someone else, but at the end of the day, you have to be you. There's only one
Yeah,
Anthony Bourdain, there's only one Richard Crouse, there's only one David Voigt, and that's
yeah,
kind of the way it's supposed to be in the world.
yep, yep. It works best when we all just embrace that, I think.
Well, you know what, brother? Thank you for helping me shine the light on a couple of documentaries, which, I mean, documentaries in general don't necessarily always get the love that they deserve, but like these are two really excellent films that are going to deserve some audiences when they,
And
well,
this is
one
where
one
streaming
is out now,
services.
and Anthony
Yeah.
Bourdain will be out imminently, probably as this airs right now. So
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's where streaming services come in handy. They're a great home for docs, and Disney Plus in the Summer of Soul. It's a great, just turn it up loud.
oh
It's
yeah, play it loud, absolutely. But Richard, thanks for the time, and well, we'll see you down the road.
absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.